Thanks for joining us for City Council Comments. I'm Steve Erickson along with Jenny Geisler. Today we're talking about the June 2nd and the June 16th City Council meetings. And Jenny is actually over on our City Council Comments set. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we're practicing social distancing here in the era of COVID and want everyone to be comfortable here. So thanks for coming in today and talking about these two meetings. We had fairly lengthy agendas, or decent length meetings.
We had a lot of items to discuss, so it was vibrant meetings this month.
It was. Well, let's jump right into things here. We want to start off talking about our June 16th meeting. One of the first items there was a resolution approving 2021 Civic Center fees. This seems a little earlier than normal.
It does, and what we are finding is people are reserving, in 2019, we're reserving for 2020 dates. So most of our 2020 dates are already booked by the time we were doing our 2020 fees. So we've realized that we need to kind of offset and be earlier with setting our annual fees so that the fees for the year are actually the fees that get charged in the year. So we're starting to do that shift to make sure that now we've got our 2021 fees. So as next year dates are booked, that they would be booked at the appropriate levels.
Okay. And that's something they just kind of continually do on an annual basis, kind of review comparisons to other cities and that sort of thing.
Yep.
All right. Council accepted the 2019 annual financial statement. There was actually a work session before the council meeting on this.
Yeah, our auditors came in and gave the full update. Our finance team does a fabulous job. Kevin Knopik and Fran Hansen are great with our finance team. And what happens on an annual basis is an independent auditor comes in and reviews all of our books and makes sure we're doing everything appropriately and making sure that all of the money is where it's supposed to be and all of the reports and financial statements that we put out are accurate and make sure that transparency is there. And so we got a clean opinion and everything was great. And as I said, our finance team does a great job. And so MMKR was our auditors, and they're on their 6th year of auditing. And what happens after 6 years, we'll go out and then next year will be a different auditor. And that's to provide independence to make sure that you don't get too cozy with your auditor. So, but we think they do a great job. Our finance team does a great job, and looking forward to another good year with correct financial statements.
Alrighty. Council ratified a temporary expansion of liquor licensing. This is to allow for expanded outdoor service. This is actually an item we also had on the first meeting of the month.
Right. And what that does is with the governor's orders where they could do more outside dining, trying to open up our businesses and the restaurants, we needed to modify some of our ordinances to allow for some outdoor seating because there's some restaurants that really don't have it today. And we wanted to give them that opportunity to be able to open and serve our community. So you'll see at places where there's the tables out into the parking lots, and we just needed to make sure that they could then sell their liquor in the parking lot, because right now they wouldn't be able to, before this, they wouldn't have been able to do that. And how do they delineate the space that they can sell in versus their parking lot? And so we worked through that to be able to make sure that we kind of had some guidelines of how this would happen for the restaurants, and then we waived all of the different permit fees. We just asked them to come in with a plan to say, what are you going to do? Where are you going to put it? How's it going to work?
Yeah.
So then that we would be aware. And at the first meeting, we approved 3 restaurants and an additional 3 restaurants at the second meeting. We're approved to have this additional outdoor dining space.
All right, having to get creative here, but good for our businesses to move forward here and at least be able to have some business to survive.
Exactly, and I think a lot of people are a little stir crazy, and just being out is something that they wanted to do, and being able to patronage the restaurants would be great.
All right. Council also adopted a COVID-19 preparedness plan.
Yeah.
This is something I imagine that's been kind of in the works here for the last couple of months.
Yeah, and it's been updated, and it's on the city website. It just goes through all of the basic things of social distancing, wearing your masks, hand sanitizers, how we keep things clean and sanitary, and it really just shows the commitment to the public of what we are doing to ensure their safety as well, as they work to interact with the city and the city employees. So if you want to read it, it's out on the website.
All right, along with all the other information, all the kind of impacts and the dates and all the changes to COVID-19, you can find that right on the city's website, coonrapidsmn.gov.
Yeah.
I think it's /coronavirus.
Yeah, I think so. And then there's one other piece tied to this that we didn't talk about that we just got a notice of. Anoka County now has a coronavirus dashboard. So if you go to the Anoka County website, it's Novel Coronavirus Situation Summary with dashes in between. But there you can see the counts for the county, you can see the counts by city, you can see trends, and it really gives you a lot of data to help you be more informed of what truly are the levels of risk and what's happening within our community and our county. So encourage people to go check that out.
All righty. Moving forward, we had under old business an adoption of an ordinance 2233, changing the zoning from general commercial to high density residential at 10200 Goldenrod Street. Now, this is a property kind of over by the post office?
Correct. So if you are going south on Foley and want to go north on Highway 10, there's that entrance ramp. It's right along that entrance ramp. So by the Progressive Insurance, there's an office building, and near the post office. This parcel of land has been owned by a local developer for many years, and it had been guided as moderate density residential into the early 90s. And in 1993, the developer and owner of that land really wanted to try and make it a commercial property, and so the zoning and comprehensive land use plan designation was set to commercial. Well, 1993 is a long time ago, and they haven't had any real opportunity, and so they're thinking that now is a better time to look at housing for that site. And as it's right next to the entrance ramp and the freeway and commercial buildings, it's a prime spot to put high-density residential. So that's what was approved. And so there's a zoning change as well as a comprehensive planned land use change to that designation to give the landowner now the opportunity to go see if there's an opportunity to find a project with that type of zoning designation.
All right, moving on to our next item. Item 13 is considering a development agreement with Centra North LLC. This is for the second edition of Port Riverwalk. Right,
so this is the continuation. So we had part one, and there was a plat one, and now plat two, and development agreement part two comes along to develop an additional 42 lots. I know that there was some discussion during our council meeting. Was it 26? Was it 42? It is 42 lots in this next addition. So anybody, if you've been driving down Coon Rapids Boulevard, you'll see the site improvements, the fencing, the retaining wall, the grading, and some houses going up. So we're very excited to see this moving along, and that Centra is moving forward already into phase 2.
Yeah, it's good to see here, and I think it just got kind of developed in the nick of time with when Corona started.
Yeah.
Because I want to say this site is kind of jinxed, but it's been a long time in the making. Finally, cleared some big hurdles here lately, and then we're able to start construction just kind of before coronavirus hit.
Right, and with construction, because it's an outdoor activity and they can generally socially distance, construction was still permitted as an essential use, so that was good to keep things moving along.
Yeah, maybe they have more. The last time I was by there, I only saw about 2 of them up. So
yeah, I think I always thought that they were starting on a third, but 2, 3. Yeah.
Yeah, getting there. All right.
Okay.
We look forward to the next phase of construction there.
Yes.
That's all we had on our June 16th meeting. We want to move back now to our first meeting of the month, which took place on Tuesday, June 2nd. That was actually our first meeting, I believe, back in the City Council chambers.
Yep.
We had the previous 4 meetings, the meetings in April and May, that took place via Zoom. So everyone back with some plexiglass and other things installed there to try to social distance. One of the first items there we wanted to talk about was an appeal of a decision of the Board of Adjustment and Appeals. This is for Thomas Quinn at 10494 Wintergreen Street.
Yeah, this was a really hard case. You know, Mr. Quinn has a property that had some issues, and our code and building inspectors had looked at it, and it really is not safe property. And so with that, you know, there were some orders to try and improve and to fix this, and Mr. Quinn had some health issues, and so it has been going on for a little over a year. And so now what we've looked to do is we've upheld the decisions by the Board of Adjustments and Appeals, as well as our building inspection team, to say we really need to fix this because it needs to be a safe place for him to live. But we gave an additional 120 days for him to be working on how can we get those repairs done. We really pushed our city staff to look at what can we do, get creative with any of our loan programs within the city to try and help out and make sure that Mr. Quinn has a good living place.
All right. So again, you said that he was given additional days to come into compliance.
Correct.
All right. Council considered a ratification of a city manager's order 20-1. This is for temporary outdoor customer service areas. We touched on this a little bit, but the city manager's order gave them restaurants a little bit more leeway with kind of making some areas for outdoor dining.
Correct. You know, so this, you know, we talked a little bit about the outdoor seating and where you could actually sell liquor, you know, or serve liquor. This also is for, you know, places that would want a second potential drive-through out. Like I know Culver's brings out a separate register, and they actually work 2 drive-throughs since they weren't putting people inside the building. And there's places like that this order allows you to do things more creatively on your site to be able to generate more business and serve more customers in a timely manner. So this is just really one of the ways that we're working to try and help the businesses in our community.
Yeah, and this is something that kind of was put into order, and then outdoor dining kind of started here at the beginning of June.
Right.
Since then, the governor has allowed restaurants to open to limited capacity
Correct.
for indoor dining as well.
Correct.
So they're kind of utilizing, it seems right now, still those outdoor spaces plus some limited indoor dining.
Yes, right.
All right. Let's move along here. Council considered partial liquor license refunds. This was due to COVID-19 relating to closures of restaurants. The city decided to kind of refund some of the liquor license fees.
Yeah, correct. So as we looked, you know, with our businesses, so our restaurants who sell liquor, so not the liquor stores, but restaurants who serve liquor, they have to have a liquor license. And they've really been closed roughly 3 months. And so we took the action to refund 25% of their license fee for that period of time that they were mandated to be closed. And, you know, we kind of looked at that as a fair, you know, thing that we could do from a city perspective to support our businesses, to be able to help them out and keep them going, because we want to keep all of our businesses viable within our city.
All right. So this is essentially 25% of their 2020 liquor license fees?
Correct.
Which kind of equals about 3 months.
Right, exactly. And it's money they have already paid us, so it is actually a check back to these businesses.
Okay. Moving forward, council considered a grant awards utilizing lawful gambling proceeds to benefit area nonprofit organizations. I thought this was an interesting way to try to help some of our local nonprofits in the time of this pandemic.
Exactly. You know, we used this fund several years ago when Hope for Youth was building their youth facility. We used the funds to help cover, you know, some of the permit types of fees and things that we could not officially waive, but we could support them with. And so right now we have about $36,000 in this account, and it's generated by the city receives 5% of all charitable gambling proceeds. That money, we take what we get in, we take 90% of it, we give it to the Community Strengths Foundation for their activities. Most of the years it's used for our 4th of July fireworks and carnival. But that other 10% stays with the city. And we looked at this and went, how can we support our nonprofits? Because a lot of these organizations were doing their fundraising campaigns, and all of a sudden they couldn't really hold them because of coronavirus. They couldn't have people meeting, and they were really down on donations, and they were struggling. So we got letters of request from 4 different places, and we distributed funds. Alexandra House, we donated $13,000, and then Youth First, Hope for Youth, and Stepping Stone each received $7,000 as a way for us to support these nonprofits who deliver services to our community, and we want to make sure that our community members who may be hurting or need that help, these organizations are there for them.
All right. There was a little bit of talk or discussion about the dollar amount to each organization. What was the thinking behind giving the Alexander House more than the others?
So Alexander House is a kind of a women's and children's abuse shelter, and their connection with our city police department and our city is very strong. We deal with them on a regular basis and are a great partner to the city, and their needs seem to be a little bit greater. And that's where the council decided to, not just split even across the 4 organizations, that they needed a little stronger boost and payment from the donation.
Okay. And again, they said this is the money, the city gets 5% of the gambling proceeds, and that's where this money kind of comes from? Correct.
Yep. And, we know that charitable gambling is going to be down for this next year as well, because where are they charitable gambling? It's at restaurants, right. And the restaurants have been closed, so they haven't. These support teams haven't been bringing in the money. So we expect that obviously our 5% will be much lower in this next year as well. But we had this existing money and felt it was the appropriate use to support people in this time.
All right, I'm sure they're very appreciative of that. Council adopted a resolution regarding the reopening of businesses and churches. This was actually a resolution that the Anoka County Board passed, and then it was brought up to have this kind of done similarly here on the City Council level.
Yeah, this is your the council making a little bit of sausage. It was a very lively discussion that we had. We had seen the Anoka County resolution at a workshop a couple of weeks before, and there was a general sense of no real direction of if we're going to do anything. And we had this on our agenda as just a topic of discussion. And a couple of hours before the meeting, we found out that no, it was rewritten into a Coon Rapids ordinance, and we'd be asked to vote on it. So it was kind of a quick read and quick learn for several folks on the council that didn't, had to be working all day and just got this right before the meeting. And so we went through, and I think Councilmember Demmer mentioned it at the end that, all of us on the council come from the position with great intent to help our businesses, to help our community, to do the right thing. We just potentially have different approaches to how we get to that end state. And so as we walked through that resolution, there were a number of different changes that we made. Some of them are because of the changing orders from the governor of what can be opening. So some of the things were no longer relevant. There were things about stating that we had passed gating criteria and should be able to be open. Well, some of our numbers didn't show that we had passed gating. And so as we came through, and there seemed to be some conflict of, whereas and whereas statements that we're talking about businesses and that they could follow the governor's guidance and they could follow the guidelines, but then the last whereas said, we want the governor to repeal basically all of those guidelines. So we ended up taking that last statement out and came up with, I think, a very good, very reasonable resolution that, ceremonial as it is a statement to our governor that is, we have to be a little bit more precise. We can't just paint every business with the same brush. That there are different circumstances, and if we can find ways to allow a business to have a plan that meets all of the existing criteria, that they could potentially open with, versus saying you're in this category, you have you can't open yet. So we're just looking at ways that we could encourage that flexibility in how some of those rules were set. And I think now, as the new orders are coming out from the governor, there's more and more flexibility and there's more orders. So I think we're heading in the right direction there.
Yeah, I mean, so it really seems more symbolic in nature, but yet some of this pressure a little bit on the governor is maybe making for some of the changes that we're seeing, allowing for things to reopen a little further.
Yeah, I think certainly, the governor has been hearing the need to have things open a little bit more. And it's still, though, we made it very, very clear, this is not gone. This is still, there's an active pandemic, and people should be wearing their masks when they're out. They should be following the CDC guidelines, social distancing, when you can, making sure that you're using hand sanitizer, because these are things that each individual can do to protect not only themselves, but their neighbors and the people that they're with. And that we all can be part of this solution to try and make sure that we're flattening the curve, that we're reducing the number of instances. Because yes, some people it's very mild, but when you have to be in the hospital, we want to make sure that that medical facility has the capacity to effectively treat all the people who need that level of care. And if we all get sick at the same time and there's way too many people, we could overwhelm that hospital system. And so that's what we're trying to do with that slow open, to make sure that we don't get into a situation where there are no hospital beds for people.
Exactly. All right. Well, that is all we had basically to talk about as far as the items that were on the actual agenda. Under other business, wanted to talk about, Chief Wise was asked, he's been getting questions from residents about the department in light of the George Floyd killing in Minneapolis, and he kind of had some reaction that he read. It was an email that he read to a constituent who had emailed him. Yeah, and I've traded a number of different emails and conversations with City Manager and Chief Wise, and Chief Wise had a very heartfelt response to that letter, and he also put out kind of a overarching statement, so you can see that on the city website. It's been on Facebook, I believe it's on Twitter, so a number of different social media sites, and he goes through, and one of the things that we're trying to do is to help make our citizens aware that we try and do things differently within Coon Rapids. Does it mean that we're perfect? Probably not. But as I noted with Chief Wise, whenever he pins on a badge, he makes very clear to note that this is the citizen's badge, and that the citizens of Coon Rapids entrust this officer to protect and serve them. And it's that culture of helping the citizens and assisting that he brings to the department, and has been recognized. Representative Stevenson tapped him, and I believe he testified to the legislature on, how can we address police violence at the state legislature this week. And so he's seen as a leader trying to make things better for everybody. And so I'm just very happy and thankful that he's here in our community and leading the way. And so if you haven't seen it on the website, go and check out Chief Wise's letter. Yeah, it's very important for folks to hear from their police department and know their thoughts on this whole process and their idea of policing in the community. Exactly. All right. One other item that has kind of been brought up at a couple meetings now under other business has been the Saturday night cruise that has been taking place on Coon Rapids Boulevard for at least over a month now, maybe even longer than that. And while it's fun for some, other people are not liking it so much. Yeah, and so I represent Ward 4, which is
the primary area that the cruise drives through, and it has been the number one amount of emails and phone calls from residents that I have received in all of my time on the council. And we've been working as hard as we can to make sure that we've got good police presence on the boulevard. They are issuing citations. I think, Chief Wise has been sending me, what do we issue every week? And I think there have been like 20 to 60 violations each week. The group that has posted that cruise to their Facebook page has been identifying people who aren't necessarily following all the good behavior rules, and our Chief Wise has been calling them. So we've been working within the rules, because we can't stop people from driving on a public road.
Right.
And noise ordinances are near impossible to try, because they're more about sustained noise in one space, and these cars are moving, and there's always road noise. But we're decided after this meeting on Tuesday, we had a resident speak, and I think some of our other council members are starting to hear issues as well, that we're going to do a workshop on the item and see what are potentially other things that we can do within the city to try and encourage better behavior, or so if, because there are a lot of people who enjoy the cruise, and it helps a lot of our businesses, especially before they were allowed to open. There are a lot of people coming and getting takeout, and I've heard a number of things from the businesses about, well, they don't necessarily like all of the noise, they love the traffic because they were making more business, and that was helping them stay viable. So there's two sides to it, and we're working on how can we make it better, because for the residents who live along the boulevard within a couple blocks of it, it is 5 to 7 hours of loud noise every Saturday. So we're working on it, and we're going to try and see what we can do to make that part a little better for our residents.
All right, I'm sure they would certainly appreciate that, the folks that live over in that area. A couple other things we wanted to mention here. We just got word this week that the Pet Fair has officially been canceled. That's an event that's taken place for the last couple of years at River View Park in September.
Yep, so that, we've also got a couple of things coming up that we're hoping that we can stay on the calendar, right? Yeah. So we do our summer in the city meetings, at the parks. So right now those are on July 14th and 28th, and we'll cross our fingers that we're able to keep those on the calendar. And then we also have summer concerts that we're hoping to keep on the calendar. As those come in July the 23rd and the 30th, as well as August 6th. So again, there's hopefully things that we'll be able to look forward to outside.
Yeah, so these are the last half of the summer, so we kind of lost 2 of our neighborhood meetings for sure. We're hoping that we can do the next 2 in July, and lost at least 5 concerts at the Dam. Again, hoping that they can do the last 3 of this summer, but again, this all hinges on the governor's orders and what is allowed as far as crowd size at public events.
Right, and to that's one of the other questions I see a lot or hear a lot is about the splash pad. Yeah. And we talked about that at our meeting on this last Tuesday on the 16th. And with that, we don't have a good way to sanitize, and where we also, because it's free, we don't have a way to control the volume of people who are at the splash pad. And to be able to find a way to do that without costing the city a lot more money, trying to put up barriers and police or patrol and monitor the number of participants and how do you manage all that, until the orders are where we can have a greater number of people in a location. That's the reason that the splash pad is currently closed, which is sad because it's such a great place for the kids to play. So
yeah, and it's been such a warm summer already.
Yeah.
Already our 5th or 6th 90-degree day, which already surpasses last year, all of the 90s combined.
Yeah.
So It sounds like it's going to be a hot one. One good piece of news we are hearing is that the farmers market is going to be opening on July 15th. That is in the Coon Rapids Ice Center parking lot, so that will open. I imagine they can do a little bit more for social distancing there and safety.
Right. You can spread the tents out a little bit and how many people within a tent, so that should be good. And
then if you hadn't heard yet, Night to Unite, which usually takes place the first Tuesday in August, has been postponed to the first Tuesday in October. That is nationwide, and a lot of the police departments that follow that group are kind of following the delay in that date out until October. I don't know what the date is, the first Tuesday in October.
Right.
All right. That is all I have, unless there's anything else you want to talk about today.
Nope. That's it for me, and I think it's just great to hear from people from the community, even if they are not really happy about the noise on the boulevard with the crews. But I think if you look at the council, we're all here to help and serve the community, and we work together, not always start out at the same place, but we always will get there.
Yeah, and try to come up with a solution that kind of works for everyone.
Yes.
All right, we appreciate you being here today and talking to us. Thank you at home for watching City Council Comments, and we'll see you right back here after our 2 meetings in July.